Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Richard Clark, and I'm a holistic therapist, and I am a hypnotherapist, and I've been a holistic therapist for 14 years. So today, for Throwback Thursday, I'm going to carry on the film series, and this is my film I'm going to talk about is Falling Down. Falling Down is a 1993 American psychological thriller film. It was directed by Joel Schumacher, who was very famous for Lost Boys. Also, unfortunately, he did Batman and Forever, which is pretty terrible. But Joel Schumacher has written some very good films as well within that. But this was written by a guy called Eb Rose-Smith, and it was released by Warner Brothers, and it was released in the United States in 1993. Now, 1993 was quite an interesting year because it was the year of when Jurassic Park and big films like that, but also The Fugitive and some major films came out. But this film stars Michael Douglas as William Defence Foster. He's a divorced and unemployed former defence engineer, and it centres on Foster's track across the city of Los Angeles and his attempts to reach the house of his estranged ex-wife in time for his daughter's birthday. Along the way, a series of encounters, both trivial and provocative, cause him to react with increasing violence, to make sardonic observations on life, poverty, the economy and commercialism. At the time, it grossed $96 million against a $25 million budget, taking the top spot at the United box office in its first 2 weeks of release. It is definitely it is not a film you watch. It's not a film to just have escapism. It's a film about thinking about the way culture works. And now, nearly 30 years on, its impact when people watch it is more profound, I would say. So the plot of it starts with William Bill Foster is stuck in Los Angeles on a hot day. After his air conditioning fails, he abandons his car and begins walking, carrying his briefcase. Within this, he goes to a convenience store and the Korean owner refuses to give change for a telephone call. Foster becomes agitated over the high prices of all the food, and the owner grabs a baseball bat and demands Foster to leave. Foster then takes the bat and destroys much of the merchandise before leaving. What he actually does is, in the end, he's never didn't rob him, and he got the change he wanted. Later, while resting on a hill after he's done this, he is accosted by two gang members who threaten him with a knife and demand his briefcase. Foster, while trying to talk to him and reason with them, then attacks them with a bat and takes their knife. The gang members, now in a car with two associates, find Foster using a payphone, and within this, they open fire, hitting several surrounding bystanders, a blight, not Foster, before the driver crashes. Foster then picks up a gun, shoots the one surviving gang member in the leg, and then leaves with a bag of weapons. Foster encounters a panhandler and gives them the briefcase, which only contains his lunch. Now, this film, as you can imagine, is pretty surreal, but the other thing is about it, this is about vigilante behaviour, and also, again, it's with Michael Douglas, is counterculture. It's against the idea of how has culture become so vapid and so violent and so extortionate, and it's become so fractured under the guise of democracy. Anyway, as Foster carries on the journey, because it's all done in one day, which is an amazing kind of concept. Would be one day done. Obviously, it did take about 3 months. And at the time that this was filmed, it was actually the LA riots were going on somewhere down the road. So it's kind of amazing how this was all happening. Very much of its time. Anyway, the next part of the film is he goes to a fast food restaurant and he attempts to order breakfast, but as he's told, they have switched to the lunch menu because he gets there for 11:28 and the breakfast menu finishes at 11:30, which is ridiculous. I mean, they've obviously got all the breakfast there, they can make it for him. And then he gets in an argument with the manager, and the manager then tries to, be calm and try to explain it to him. But Foster, due to he's more or less having a breakdown. You couldn't just go and do what he does. He's had a breakdown. He's had enough. And Foster pulls a gun and fires into the ceiling accidentally. After trying to reassure the frightened employees and customers, because he obviously doesn't want to kill anybody, he doesn't want to hurt anybody, he then orders his lunch, but he's annoyed when the burger looks like nothing like the advertisement on the menu.
You have to order something from the lunch menu.
I don't want lunch. I want breakfast.
Yeah, well, hey, I'm really sorry.
Yeah. Well, hey, I'm really sorry, too.
Get a gun!
Calm down. Just calm down, everybody. Just sit down. Sit down over there. Hey. Mister. Where are you going? No. You sit down there and you finish your lunch. Come on. Everybody just relax and take it easy. Come on. Why don't you eat your lunch, please? Eat your lunch. You all need your vitamins A's and B's and... No, it's an accident. It's an accident. The trigger, it's sensitive. It's okay. It's all right. It's a sensitive trigger. Rick, could I have my breakfast, please?
Yes, sir. Sheila?
Rick, Miss Folsom.
Yes, sir.
Yes?
You know what? You were right. I think I've changed my mind. I'm gonna have some lunch. Could I have a double whammy burger with cheese? You getting this?
Yes, sir.
And an order of whammy fries. And, let me see, a chocolate wham shake.
Yes, sir. Sheila, get his order.
Rick, could you get it for me, please? I feel more comfortable now calling you Rick after all we've been through together. How you doing? Enjoying your meal? How about you, son? Is it good? And you, ma'am? How's the food? I think we have a critic. I don't think she likes the special sauce, Rick. That's a joke. Now, here we go. Thank you. See, this is what I'm talking about. Turn around, look at that. You see what I mean? It's plump, it's juicy, it's 3 inches thick. Now, look at this sorry, miserable, squashed thing. Can anybody tell me what's wrong with this picture? Anybody? Anybody at all?
And what he does, he actually, in fact, he's in the menu, he's in the restaurant, and he asks one of the children there, does anybody notice what's wrong with this burger? And there's this one child, a black kid, puts his hand up, and in the actual original edit, they ask him what's wrong with it, and he says, oh, it doesn't look right. Now they just show the kid put his hand up. But it's what he's doing, he's going against the idea of this, why society seems to be all this fakeness, and he's going against this. And I love this idea of this film, that he's really going against the ideal, the American dream. And I think that was quite a powerful statement to make in 1993, because after the 80s, the good is, you've got to remember, Michael Douglas had played Greed is Good in Wall Street, and now he's this guy who seems to be like a deflated person who doesn't understand what that has caused. So it's very interesting if you understand Michael Douglas's background as an actor. Anyway, so while he does that, he leaves the restaurant, he's paid for the food, so again, he never robs anything, never gets anything free. He tries to place a call from a phone booth, then shoots the booth to pieces after being hassled by someone who's waiting to use the phone and won't wait. After Foster calls home again and states his intention to attend his daughter's birthday party, his ex-wife, Beth, notifies the police because she has a restraining order against him. The guy who's in the police, Sergeant Martin Pendergast, is on his last day of duty before retirement and insists on investigating the events. Interviews with witnesses lead Pendergast to suspect that the same person is responsible for all of them. Foster's vanity license plate proves to be an important lead, called Defence, and because Pendergast remembers being in the same traffic jam as Foster earlier that day. Pendergast and his partner, Detective Sandra Torres, visits Foster's mother, who is surprised to learn that he has lost his job. They realise Foster is heading towards his family home in Venice Beach and rushes to intercept him. While Foster, again on his journey trying to get home, because he's not in his car, he's obviously doing this walking, passes a bank where a black man is protesting after being rejected for a loan. The man exchanges a glance with Foster and says, "Don't forget me." And he says, one of the things he's talking about, he says he's not economically viable. And what he means by that is that the idea is that they want people to pay into society, but then when anybody wants money back from the banks, they make it difficult. So it's again this very much a pushing of the counterculture ideal in a 90s film about the idea is that people use people to get their money, but then when they want to use their own money because they're using it to make interest, they can't get it, or they make an excuse, or no matter what it is, no matter how hard you work, they still have this, status or parameters of where you can't get a loan or you can't do this, and it's inverted racism as well. So within this, Foster then goes and sees this guy who's protesting is escorted away by the police. While Foster then carries on his journey, he stops at a military service store to buy boots because his own shoes are wearing out after he's walking so long. And the owner turns out to be a homophobic neo-Nazi. And Foster isn't keen on this, but when the Torres, one of the police officers, does that, he diverts her when she comes in. After Torres leaves, the owner offers Foster a rocket launcher and congratulates him for shooting, in his inverted commas, a bunch of the N-word at the restaurant. But what Foster expresses distaste for the store owner's bigotry. The man becomes hostile and attempts to turn him over to the police, but Foster stabs him, then shoots him dead. Foster changes into army clothes, takes the rocket launcher and leaves. So this is now where he's now killing people now. So instead of him just being angry, he's now gone on not just being a vigilante, he's then gone on to a case of being a martyr. Anyway, as this goes on, Foster encounters a road repair crew who are not working and Foster accuses them of doing unnecessary repairs to justify their budget, which is what the councils do in England and America. They repair roads because the council have to do that. So because if they don't get that, the government don't give them the same budget. So this is again, he's going against another authoritative idea. And then Foster then pulls out a rocket launcher but struggles to use it. And then he actually asks the boy, who actually then teaches him how to use it. So it's basically a child knows how to use a rocket launcher, which is a very surreal moment. And Foster accidentally fires the launcher. The child thinks he's doing it for a movie, but doesn't realise it's real life. And then he blows up the construction site. By the time Foster then reaches Beth's house, which is the daughter's and the mother's house of the child, she has already fled with the daughter. And he realises that they may have gone to nearby Venice Pier, which is where they spent the family and they used to do birthdays and eat ice cream and everything. But Pendergrass and Torres arrive before he can pursue them. Foster then shoots Torres, injuring her, and flees with Pendergrass in pursuit. At the pier, Foster confronts his ex-wife and daughter. Adele, his daughter, is happy to see him, but Beth is frightened. Pendergrass arrives and distracts Foster long enough for Beth to throw his gun into the ocean. Pendergrass holds Foster at gunpoint, insisting that he give himself up, acknowledging his complaints about being ill-treated by society, but does not accept that as an excuse for his vigilante rampage. With nothing left for him, Foster tricks Pendergrass into shooting him dead as a shootout, like in the Western sort of ideal. Having asserted himself, Pendergrass decides to hold off retirement, and Foster is then died and goes over the edge. And what this film does, it teaches you about this way of how all of us can feel wronged against society. We believe in conspiracy theories and so forth, but again, the justification of losing our temper or losing our mind can lead to anyone doing these things. Not obviously to this extreme, but it's always about the idea of that we have to be wary of mental health, of how people can lose their temper, can lose their way. And I think this film illustrates it very well, because in the 90s, it was seen that the 90s was this bright new decade, it was all different. And what Michael Douglas and also the film written by Jules Schumacher was to illustrate that there are so many wrongs in the world, and the idea is the falling down. Why it's called falling down is basically he's falling down of who he is as a person, because he has a mental breakdown. And the thing is, instead of people should have dealt with his mental breakdown before, or reported it, or helped him out, they had just left him to, pretend to go to work. And this happened to a lot of people. When people used to go to work in the recession, there were people, I remember in London, I'd go to somewhere to do work, and there were people going on the tube, and they would then go on the tube and then they would go on the next tube to go back home, because they were so used to going to work and they didn't have the courage to tell their wife or their children they'd lost their job. And we have to, in a society, be very wary of when people are acting certain ways and intervene when we can, just to help them, get them back on the straight and narrow. And I think this film is very important with that, because it's 30 years old, it's still talking about that idea of how people can lose their way, and that they feel the world is unjust, but the world is just what it is. You know, there's always good and evil, there's always unjust and, you know, justification, but it's about how do we better the world by understanding it and then trying to make it better, instead of being in this vigilante mode. But anyway, please watch the film if you've seen it. If you have seen it, tell me your comments on it. Obviously, because some people are ready to have breakdowns, because of being a hypnotherapist, I've worked with people who have had breakdowns or near that way, and then helped them with that. So again, any questions, any ideas about this film, or any ideas, motifs you like about it or don't like about it, please let me know.